Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Detour Live. I'm your host, Dan Jones, as always, joined by four-time National Road Champion from Australia, John Trevorrow, and the voice of cycling, Phil Liggett. Now, Phil, yesterday you said, could there be any more stories for the Tour de France so early on? And, mate, we've gone and dished up a stage of absolute carnage. There's going to be a lot to unpack on today's show. I said to John just before we went there, I said, mate, I don't have a run sheet. He said, mate, you don't need one. There's so much to talk about on what happened yesterday, but we need to start on a positive because I've got a feeling we're going to get the one board out and cream a few up the fairway. So let's talk about the foundation. We always start off with a beautiful photo of the rhino, and we want people to donate to the Careka Foundation and the website to kick things off, kariega.co.za/Peloton. Keep those donations coming in because it's a great cause, Phil.
And Trish is very impressed, Dan, about the way you say Careka. And so you've impressed Trish anyway, my wife.
Well, that's great.
Well done, mate. Lindy Sutherland is the lady who is in charge of the foundation in South Africa, is just emotionally delighted with the way the cyclists from around the world are supporting the animals which roam wild in the area of Careka, including the one there, which is Tandy, the famous rhino. She's lovely. Had her face hacked to pieces by the poachers, but she made it. That's all that matters.
Well, that's great. And as we said, we've started off on a positive note. Keep those donations coming in.
Well, I've got a little bit of information for you. Right. Very, very good sponsors have made some donations. So whoever raises the most from our podcast for the Careka Foundation will receive a $500 voucher from Let's Go Motorhomes. They will receive a $500 voucher from Bike Exchange and a box of beautiful Mitchelton Heathcote Shiraz.
Well, that's awesome. Can I enter?
No. You're going to. Well, you've got to work out how we can track the donations. We need to know.
When they donate, they'll be asked to give their email address, which we picked up by Careka, and Lindy will send you that information back and the email.
Fantastic.
Address. So it will be able to be worked out, and I'll inform Lindy when we finish commentary today as well.
And even when you can write a comment, they can even just put in Detour Podcast, and then we know it's from them as well. So
I'm not going to set any trend or any. We used to invite even a penny's going to help this situation.
That's right.
A gentleman in the United States yesterday sent me $5,000, which is now with Lindy in South Africa, and of course, Lindy replies to everybody personally. So if you make the donation, you'll hear from Lindy, believe me.
It's wonderful.
That's fantastic, mate.
All right, out with the one wood, mate.
All right, mate. All right.
Yes.
So, obviously, there's
any Australians left to compete against the English. That's what I want to know.
Well, yes, we John predicted that Caleb would win 6 stages, and that's obviously not going to happen now. But we got to move on now. There was wash up. You know, Scotty McGraw is very good on our WhatsApp channel, and he's posted a few of the comments from the riders. Now, Simon Geschke said, funny how the Super Tuck and forearm positions got banned for safety reasons, while at the same time we have finishes like today at Le Tour. Now, Luke Rowe, he was fined, and he sort of clarified things. It said he got fined 300 Swiss francs, 20 UCI points for assault, intimidation, insults, threats, improper conduct. And he said, look, I need to clarify what happened here, as a lot of people were making the wrong assumption. We were 3 minutes behind chasing with G after the crash. Normally, under the circumstances, you get some help from team cars. The jury allowed us nothing. When we finally returned to the peloton, I spoke to the jury and said this was not correct under the extreme circumstances of a nasty crash and a mangled shoulder. I shouted at the jury and said some words I shouldn't have. There you have it. Peace out. Then we got Alex Dowson said, I hope Lachlan Morton navigated that finish okay. And Julian Bernard says, translation, I watched the replay of today's finale, and frankly, everyone had socks that were the right height. So everything's fine. And Andre Greipel, he said, whoever designed today's stage at the Tour should try and ride with 180 riders on a twisty 5-meter wide road next to each other and pushing watch boots to the limits. Of course, we riders make the race at the end, but the riders also asked for earlier time, taking 5 kilometres to go, which was refused. Now, what is your take on proceedings, Phil?
Well, Philippe Gilbert, the former world champion and the great Tour rider, has had some nasty crashes himself out of the Tour. He's been talking, and in fact, in our program today, we're probably going to show the interview. He said apparently there was a request put to the ASO, the organizer of the Tour, weeks ago, that on this day it would make more sense to move the time-taking rule at 5 kilometres out from the finish, then the sprinters can get on with it. And the other riders don't need to worry about losing time. The ASO agreed to this, but the race commissaires, when they came to the race, said no, it's still the 3 kilometre rule. And of course, we saw what happened on the day. Now, okay, I'm not going to criticise anybody here, but that was the request. Gilbert also said that a lot of the teams did actually recon this course, and none of them complained about the run into the finish, to his knowledge. And yet we could see how narrow it was. And the crashes were pilot error. They were the fault of the riders, not the public, not caused perhaps by the narrowness of the roads, but it was the riders that touched wheels and crashed. And as indeed was the crash with poor Caleb Ewan at the finish. There was nobody else to blame but Caleb Ewan, from what I could see.
Yeah. Do you think it's a matter of, like, we've got an interview coming up with Matt White that we pre-recorded, but do you think it's a matter of exactly what you're saying before? They know the risks, and, you know, there's obviously respect issues in the peloton because it is so hectic. But at the same time, you know, we're talking about a sport that, what is it? It's entertainment. No one likes to see what happened to Jack Haig and crash out, and there's so much time, effort, preparation. There's money involved. What is the problem? And this is what really gives me the shits when you hear that the UCI or whoever the commissaire was that says, no, we're not going to do it at 5K to go. We'll do it at 3K to go. Why? Like, why? It's entertainment. We don't want to see this. And if riders are checking out and it's safety, you know, two days ago, right, we pinpointed this fan and we've said, hunt this fan down because they're doing something that is against rider safety. And they're ostracized. They're going to get jail time. You know, we want name, details, all this sort of stuff. But that person who made that call from the UCI, which was around rider safety, you know, okay, no, that's just his call. Where's the onus here? Like, it's all different for the fans. It's different for him. It just really gives me the shits because Jack Haig, you know, okay, it was hectic, but this is the Tour. You know, they are so stressed and there's so much pressure and it's so hectic. We know all this. So just do whatever you can to make sure that these guys are protected. Like, it's still entertainment.
Especially in the first week. And that's the whole thing. If this stage had been just like that in the final week of the Tour, it wouldn't have been anything like that. It wouldn't have been that frantic rush by all the teams to get to that same place on the road. It's a very narrow bit of road, and you've got GC teams, sprint teams, all trying to get by. You know, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
But
as well. Cav got taken out 4 kilometres to go, and I wonder where he'd gone. I never saw him crash, and I didn't see poor Jack Haig go down either. But, you know, the commissaires, the UCI occasionally is accused of just enforcing the silly rules and not attending to the same situation. What we have the situation of the handlebars of that guy in the Tour of Belgium. I can't think of his name at the moment. These strange handlebars. The race referees said it was okay to ride that bike. When he's in the breakaway, the world body sees him in the breakaway on those handlebars. They send a message to the race referee. We've got to kick him out of the race. And the race referee said he could do it. Now they say he can't do it. That's not fair on the riders either. But there's got to be a more direct way of applying the regulations to start with. If you look at the fines on the Tour so far, they're not always seeing the riders guilty of the infraction, but they're seeing the jersey. So they're fining the race director, like Matt White. That's an example. It hasn't been fined. But like Matt White finds himself landing with a 500 Swiss franc fine for something a rider did, and he could only identify the team and not the rider. Well, this is crazy.
And I just think, like you were saying earlier, a lot of the teams did the recon, but I think it feels like it should be seen straight away. Like when you see this course detail, like someone did notify them early enough to say, hey, there's a problem. And that should have been enough. If they're raising concerns, that should have been enough. Okay, they've got a problem. Yeah. They want to neutralize it. Okay, done. Yeah.
And don't forget, the actual race directors, like, for example, Matt White, they drive on the course or they send the scouts on the course on the day of the race and before the riders leave town. And they ring back and tell them the direction of the wind, where there's a tricky bend as they approach to climb. And all this comes back to them. As far as I know, nobody warned the riders back there, or team management, back at the start line, just how sinuous and narrow those last 5 kilometers were.
Well, I think there was actually a rider deposition just before the start. Again, not only did it happen a few days ago, they actually, one of the Belgians was representing it and went up and again asked for that 8K rule to be brought in. And they just said it fell on deaf ears. They weren't even listening. No.
Yeah. But the ASO weeks ago had said it's fine by us. But the commentators are the ones they take control of the race from the day they arrive, and the organisers have no control over what decision they make.
And Whitey did highlight how dangerous that was going to be. He was actually worried about it. And when we spoke with him last night, he brought it up, said, this is a dangerous finish. So,
but I think even if you've got the heads up, even if you know it's dangerous, like there's still going to be crashes because, as you said, when you get like the biggest problem with these sprints is getting GC teams caught in the mix, in the washing machine. If it was a clear thing where it's like, just allow the sprinters and the sprinters' trains at a certain point to get in and do their job. Yeah, you can accept crashes. You don't like seeing it like what happened with Cav. That's fine. That's part of the sport. It's always going to be part of the sport. But if you've got an opportunity for rider safety, don't stuff around with it. Just do it. Just do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. And they keep going about, the telecast and all this. As I said, don't show the riders popping off the back that have neutralised the time. Just focus on the front part. It's I don't know. It just gets frustrating because it keeps doing circle work. And as I said, like we were very quick to launch into that fan and that spectator about rider safety and negligence, yet we've got a situation where someone was made aware and they didn't make the call. So that's what I struggle with. It's like, well, hang on. You can't have it one way and then the other. Like this is anyway. Enough about that.
Yeah, but on that opening day as well, the second crash, which was caused by the riders, was far more serious than what the fan had done 30, 40 kilometers earlier. There was about 88 riders, I think the figure was, that went down in the second crash, which was caused by the riders themselves. So,
Yeah, but that was similar to yesterday in that I think it was just about, I think it was the same number went down the first crash too, but they weren't doing 65k an hour for the first one. They were at the second one. So that always makes it worse.
All right, we've got a heap of comments coming in. Kevin McTosh says, Phil, I watched your doco made by a family friend, Nick Burt. I was impressed with your commitment to the rhino. Well done. Sandy says, donations on their way. Great work, Sandy. Peter says, what is Phil's spy cam over his shoulder?
Let me just show you. It's that one there. And it gives me... Well, it's an empty seat at the moment, if you can see it, but that seat is in the other side of New York City. It's quite a long way away. But my co-commentator sits there, and the camera shows me when he comes in, he's having his first coffee of the day. It's a simple thing.
Do you have to use hand signals, Phil? Because normally when you're in a box with someone, you can tap them. Do you use hand signals to signal?
No. Yes, well, I can do. I'll put my hand up in the air, and Bob will see me do that. I've got something to say. He would do the same because we both dislike tripping over each other. Even when you get a crash, we don't want to both shout together at the same time. But that's just untidy. And of course, we've been doing a lot of shouting on this tour so far.
Well, with Andy Matthews, another comment, he says, a positive today is that Michael Matthews is sitting third in the points classification, only behind Van der Poel and Julian Alaphilippe. We talked to Matt White a bit about that and how that sort of thing has shaken up, points, GC. But, you talk about the unknowns in this race, Phil, and from what we've seen already, particularly with the GC battle, you don't want to make any early crows with what's happened so far.
Well, everybody's been in trouble. Pogacar's been the rider keeping his nose clean. He was delayed by that big crash, but I only saw him riding around it on the grass. I didn't see him go down, so I don't think he did. And he's right on course to defend his championship at this point in time. And G recovered well and got back up, so he's still right up there. Roglic, even if they'd applied the 5 kilometre rule, which doesn't exist yesterday, was still outside. He crashed at 6 kilometres to go. So he would still have lost the time he lost yesterday. So I don't.
Well, they're talking about 8 kilometre rule, but he actually crashed at 10 kilometres to go. He would have been out. No, 8K is what they requested, the start line yesterday.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. We're both talking about 5.
But it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't matter because Roglic actually crashed at 10 kilometres to go. So he would have been outside it.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're about 16 minutes in. We haven't talked about the stage winner, Tim Merlier. It was a fantastic win. Well done, Tim, and the team. It was great seeing the yellow jersey on the front doing a pull in the last stages. And obviously it was tragic for Caleb, who also took out Peter Sagan, and Caleb's broken his collarbone. But yeah, I mean that was a fantastic win for Tim. And you look at who's left in the sprints. You must be licking your lips for that package to get run with Mark Cavendish, who obviously stayed upright and avoided the carnage.
Well, funnily enough, Adam Blythe, who is our reporter on a moto in the race on the Tour de France, he's an ex-pro with Lotto Soudal. He joined us last year. He's an English guy from Czechia. He's a really nice kid, and he's very talented at reporting. He actually picked him at the start yesterday as the winner of the stage. And he also picked Van der Poel the previous day. So he's doing pretty well in our competition. 2 wins in a row. When last year he didn't win a single one. But
2 wins in a row. What was the other one? You said 2 wins in a row. What was his other win?
Picked 2 winners.
Picked 2 winners. Van der Poel and him yesterday, yeah. But this fella's a really good sprinter, but he's just below the level, I think, of the top sprinters. Yet he produces rides like that. He is Belgian, and a finish like that suits a Belgian rider. Used to narrow roads, cobble, twists and turns. He's in his apple cart on a finish like that. And that lead out initially that came from Van der Poel, his teammate in the yellow jersey, and then taken over by Jasper Philipsen, another fast finish in his own right, and took him to the line. It was perfect for Tim. A big win, first ever Tour, only stage 3, and he's on the books as a stage winner in the Tour de France. And it's his 7th win of the year as well.
It was a good win in the Giro as well. I have no doubt, though, it was a bit of an iffy story, but Caleb would have won that. Caleb would have won it by more than the length because he was coming 150 metres to go. He was coming already passing.
John, I absolutely agree with you. Caleb is a cut above the rest of the field of sprinters this year. He is cruising. Did you see him when he just cruised over in the point sprint down the course?
Yes.
Best of the rest, but he hardly looked as though he's racing them. He was so quick. So I agree with you. This man has never sprinted so well in his life.
Yeah.
Well, we've got another comment, and that was Colin. He says, off a long run with the new ball down, well said. Well, if you thought that was a sharp delivery, I'll tell you another bloke I've got in the barrel, and that's bloody Patrick Lefevre. Let me talk to you about this bloke. I'll tell you what, I'm sick of... I'll keep this quick, but I'm sick of the comments regarding Sam Bennett, right? Obviously, he's leaving the team, but going out in the public and questioning, his mental toughness and, he's got confidence issues and all this sort of stuff. And look, I think part of that is true. We had him on the Social Distance podcast earlier in the year, and I was surprised when he wasn't clearly, comfortable when he was being talked about being the fastest sprinter in the world. And when we're saying Cav joining the team and all that, he's like, it might be tough getting a spot at the Tour. And I'm like, what? And this was in February. So, okay, maybe he does have those sort of confidence issues or whatever. But what annoyed me is when Lefevre's come out in the media and said he's no guarantee to ride races for the rest of the year unless he starts showing him respect. And then publicly said, I tried calling him. He said he was out on a bike ride and he never called me back and all this sort of stuff. That sort of stuff needs to be kept in-house. This is old school bullying tactics where you're saying, I'm the boss. You pull yourself into line, and using a public forum to do that, I just reckon it's wrong. And I'll give you an example of where it can be done the other way. Ben Simmons overnight has pulled out of the Olympic team for Australia, and it's obviously affected our chance of winning a medal. And I saw an interview with Patrick Mills who came out and talked about it. Now, most people will be going, it's cost us a chance of getting a medal and we're disappointed like everyone else. Patrick Mills didn't say that. He said, look, we're always going to support Ben Simmons. There's always going to be a home for here because this is the culture that we've built. It's a brotherhood. When we represent the green and gold, we support each other. That's unconditional. And what people need respect is, and we're seeing a lot more in sport. You look at Naomi Osaka, who came out and said, she had issues around mental health. Ben Simmons is worth $250 million contract, but they're still not exempt from issues around mental health, confidence, all this sort of stuff as well. And I just think Lefebvre's comments, I think it's not called for. If you're going to have those issues, that's a private conversation, and you're setting a culture. On one hand, you say it's the wolf pack, okay, we're all tight, we're a tight group. Yet you've got a boss that's willing to go out and say those comments about a rider that's still contracted. I thought it was really poor form. And I just don't like to see it. I think he's a bully and he should pull his head in. So I might really get on a rant today, but I
couldn't get a word in. I couldn't get a word.
And he said everything we would have said anyway, so move on now.
Yeah. Do you agree, John? You reckon
I agree 100%. But he's always been a bully and a loud mouth.
Yeah,
but he's also a very, very successful team manager.
He is. When he walks in the room, I like him to Eddie Merckx. When he walks in the room, he's just walked in the room. I know Lefebvre. I saw him at the World Championships in Harrogate a couple of years ago. I was in the VIP, which is a big room, believe me, talking to some people. And Lefebvre walked in with a couple of guys, and everybody knew he just entered the room. He stands out. And that's the man. That's the way he is. But he shouldn't have said the things he said about Sam Bennett. Sam is a very personal chap. He's a very shy guy, and you really don't want to read those things about yourself in the press anyway. You can see how emotional he got when he won the green jersey. He's in tears. That's how emotional he is, and you've got to nurture those guys. Now, I don't know whether he's got this knee problem or not, or he just simply couldn't face up to the tour. I don't know. There's no need to air your underwear in public, I don't think.
Don't hurt your dirty jocks. That's what I was saying in Australia.
Yeah, that's the one. We're more polite in England.
Oh, definitely. Any other? I don't have a run sheet, John. I'm flying blind. Any other little inputs you want from yesterday's stage? Now, let's go.
We had, it was an amazing stage. So let's talk about the GC riders. So, there's only Carapaz and Alaphilippe who have a lot of the sort of GC hopefuls that didn't lose any time. Everyone else lost time. Pogacar only lost 20-something seconds. Fantastic effort. He separated shoulder and rides 150 kilometres with a crook shoulder. He only lost a similar amount. I think he finished with Pogacar with that 20-something seconds down. So Roglic, a minute something, but hey, time trial tomorrow. He'll get some back. He'll be really looking for some recovery time today. And the whole thing for Roglic, I don't think it affects him too much if he's not badly hurt. It will depend on how sore he actually is when he hits the start line today. But so as much as I'm looking forward to the sprint today, and I reckon Cav, it could be his day, but I'm also looking forward to the time trial tomorrow. That's going to tell us a lot.
Well, it is. It's not a flat time trial. It's in the flattish area, but the undulations are coming at you thick and fast. So it'd be a good time trial for a strong rider. And, who knows? Pogacar, certainly, Roglic, Geraint Thomas, they're going to have to hit hard tomorrow and get themselves back up. But the man who's been the success of the first 3 days of this tour is Richard Carapaz. And he's put himself forward now as the leader of Ineos. When before the start, we had 4 of them. Now he seems to be the man.
I predict he will lose more than a minute in the time trial tomorrow. Yeah, no, I just think he will. But just going on previous time trialing form, but I'm interested to see how Alaphilippe goes because he could get himself back into the yellow jersey tomorrow.
He could win this time trial.
Mathieu Van der Poel, he will do a really good time too, but I don't believe Mathieu Van der Poel intends to finish this Tour de France. I don't think he does.
the story goes that he's going to leave early for the mountain bike events in the Olympic Games, but I don't know. Stories are stories. I'm just a journalist. I don't know.
You'll be commentating those
cycling, mate. The voice of cycling. You know what's going on.
Are you commentating the mountain biking at the Olympics, Phil?
No, I'm not actually. No, I'm. So kind of got left out of that. But
Scotty is evidently. Scotty's our man he's doing the mountain bikes and the BMX and the track and the road. He's doing everything.
Here, there, Scotty, everywhere.
Good for him. Not blame. Good for him.
We'll get a text from him very shortly, I reckon.
Well, all right, Phil. Well, as always, we've appreciated you being on the show, and as we said at the top of the show, make sure you keep donating to the Careca Foundation, KARIEGA.co.za/Peloton. So make sure you donate, and as if you said, there's some great prizes up for whoever has the best donation from the Detour show. And geez, mate, hopefully you can have an easy stage today, Phil. Sorry, John.
Before we give Phil the lemonade, I just wanted to just touch base on the Mayor Ver, the green jersey, because this is looking really, really good for Matthews, partly because he managed to stay upright. But he's equal third at the moment, and the two in front of him, Van der Poel and Alaphilippe, they're not going for the green jersey. So his main opposition, he's equal with Tim Mulier, who I don't believe will finish his bike race either, because he's just had such a hard season. He rode the Giro and everything. So Sonny Colbrelli and Sagan, I think, are his main challenges. But he got a good lead on them. I think he's got 50 points. Sonny Colbrelli's got 32 and Sagan 24. Now, okay, Peter was very unlucky. Without that crash yesterday, he probably would be in front of Michael. But he's in a really good spot right at the moment. So he's going to be in this battle for the green jersey for sure.
I agree, and maybe a win today. It's not impossible. 50 points for the winner today, and 20 out on the course at 70 green jersey points available today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the rate the tour's going, the yellow jersey will be the Stephen Bradbury jersey by the time we get to Paris.
Poor old Stephen Bradbury. You've never forgot, have you? I was commentating on Speed skating, don't forget, is Trisha's sport. She was in the Olympic Games in Grenoble in speed skating. So I've got a passion for speed skating, and Bradbury got what he deserved, and that was a gold medal. It wasn't his fault they all fell over.
That's right. In fact, he made the skates, I think, for 3 or 4 of the competitors that were in the final. So probably sabotage. Who knows? Anyway, anything else you want to ask Phil, John?
No, I was going to talk about the Aussies versus the Brits, but that's not looking so good right now, is it?
That comp's finished.
Lewis Hamilton is still sitting quite comfortably. He's only, it's only I think a minute 16 down, something like that. So he's still in the mix. And Ben O'Connor has managed to. He had his bad luck early, but he managed to escape it. And even Richie is still not that far down. So we've got to remember that they're a chance to get back in the mix the way this race is going. And Richie will do a very good time trial tomorrow.
Yeah, but I have to say that I'm really sorry about Jack Hay, because he's coming better and better every day he rides this year. And I think he would have been a probable top 6 finisher in the Tour. He was looking so good. And there he is out of the race. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Really
it is very sad. Yeah. Agree, mate. Agree. Yeah.
Jack, if you're listening, they want to see that spectator. You need to get the details of that commissaire who didn't want to do the neutralisation, mate. Get your nice suit pressed and let's go. Anyway, time to move on. Hey, thanks for being on, Phil. We can let you go now. If he's done with these questions, we'll check in tomorrow. And that's it, mate.
We'll
chat to you then.
And thanks to everybody for what you're doing for the Rhinos. Okay, catch up soon.
Good on you, mate. Talk to you soon. Phil Liggett, the voice of cycling, absolute superstar. Anything you want to add before we go to an ad break, Johnny?
No, go with the ads, mate. Love them.
Okay. We've got actually a shorter Let's Go ad. Before we do as well, there's a competition for the best question. $500 Let's Go motorhome voucher. Iffy?
Yes, Andrew, I got a lovely message from him today. He's absolutely loving the podcast. And he said, look, I'll do a few different ads so that you can change them around a little bit. And that's when he offered for another extra $500 voucher for the best donation to Kaleka.
That's it. All right. Well, here's a new commercial from Let's Go and our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Fun fact, you can make cycling part of your next Let's Go adventure. With a bike, you can enjoy and explore even more places. So feel the wind in your hair, book a bike, enjoy the outdoors and see more with a Let's Go motorhome today.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to Let's Go and Bike Exchange. Sensational support for the detour. They're the reason why we bring you the show. So we've got a few more comments. Diane says, geez, you're fired up today, Dan. I just thought I'd tee off. Might as well mix things up a bit. Scooter says, well said, Jonesy. Patrick is definitely an old school bully of cycling. We're throwing a few logs in here. Joshua Hopwood said, well said, Dan. The show just went to the next level. Tom says, if he got to watch himself in Kazakhstan, then Dan's got to be careful now in France.
Hi, Tommy.
Kevin McIntosh said, if he's got skin off everywhere. I think when we were talking about Roglic. And Scotty says as well, yes, I'm doing mountain bike, also modern pentathlon for the Olympics. Jim Bow says, hey, lads, do you think that on a designated sprint stages, your time at 5K to go counts as your GC time, regardless if there's a crash or not? That way GC teams can sit up and not be involved.
That's the only way it can work, Jimbo. That is the only way it can work. Because at the moment, that rule at 3K doesn't really change much, because if a rider just sits up, he will lose that time. It has to be a crash. So they would have to change the rule, not only change the distance, but change the rule that the actual timing is done there, and then they sprint for the stage. Yep.
Well, we caught up with Team Bike Exchange head DS Matt White earlier today, dissected a lot from stage 3, and this is the interview. This is just getting beyond a joke, this bloody Tour de France. I mean, we were talking about in the first 3 stages, you know, how many talking points there were, but I mean, there's so much to unpack from yesterday, and the biggest concern is obviously the fact that the riders clearly said that they had issues with the circuit prior to the start. They wanted to neutralise it. They didn't neutralise it. We've had crashes. You know, we know there's crashes in bike races, but you don't want to see guys like Jack Haig out of the GC and things like this. What can we do moving forward? Because, I mean, you know, we made an example of this fan based on safety, and, you know, it's all about that. But when we have situations like yesterday, I mean, it just feels like there's not a lot of progress when it comes to safety and stages like that.
I think there's a couple of issues there. The circuit was tight, but everyone knew it was tight. I think the problem is the general trend. There's a lack of respect, I think, amongst the group as well. I think that there's guys taking more risks, and everything is amplified here at the Tour de France. And at the end of the day, whatever course you put the race on, if the riders have no respect for each other, or if riders are taking unnecessary risk, it's gonna end in tears, isn't it? And the stress here at the first week of the Tour de France is like nowhere else. Maybe it compares with maybe the classics in Belgium. But the difference in Belgium, if you go in to race those classics, you know what you're in for, and it's a whole peloton knows what they're in for, and you don't send a 55-kilogram climber to Tour of Flanders or Paris-Roubaix. The difference here is you've got a big variety of riders. Some who are just trying to survive the first week until the mountains start, and when you've got guys with various skill sets racing on the same roads in tight weather conditions, accidents bound to happen. But I think the courses were tight for sure, but it's how the guys are racing them, and the feedback we're getting off our guys is and it's been a general trend over the last few years, is that the lack of respect for each other in the group has changed over the last few years.
Interesting, Whitey. You're speaking a little bit differently to what a lot of the others have been saying. I understand what you're talking about. So, realistically, if they had to put yesterday's finale in the last week of the tour, it would be a very different situation to what happens first road stage. And the challenge, of course, is that we've got this really narrow road for the last 10K with some teams trying to get the GC riders, other teams trying to get their sprinters up there. There's just not room for everyone on that just small bit of bitumen.
No, it was tight, and you're right there. Things will settle down here. By the time we get to the mountains, half the GC guys will be gone, and there'll be a few blokes out on their feet because they've been racing in the wind to protect them for a week. But look, it is raced different from the first week to the last week, and it also, if this was the Giro or the Vuelta, that it wouldn't be as aggressive as well. So there's not just one thing that has made the first couple of days as tricky as they have.
But wouldn't that help?
We've had some big crashes, but on the first day, it was a stupid fan who put a cardboard cutout into Tony Martin's front wheel. The second one, the downhill one, was probably one of the biggest crashes we've ever seen. But an overlap of wheels and on a downhill section, and it's like dominoes. So accidents do happen. But talking to our guys in the bunch, and we've got away with it. We've had, I think, everyone except for one of our guys has actually touched down so far in the first 3 days. Is the feedback is there's not a lot of respect in the peloton.
But wouldn't it still be beneficial if they did neutralise it, or like at the 8K mark for the GC, or is it still a matter of it's bike racing? You as you said, the conditions.
I think there is definitely some merit to stopping the time further out than 3K. I think there is all it would mean is the guys race until wherever that marker is. So it'd just be more stressful earlier. But the style of racing here at the Tour de France, and it's from an insider, is that the guys are having to find a position on the side of the road 60, 70K from the finish here. Like you cannot move. You cannot move in the last hour and a half here. Guys have got to find a position where they think it's going to be, like, depending on each stage, and you're with 2 or 3 teammates, and you just got to hold one side of the road or stay together, and people are just not budging. And and you saw how narrow the roads were. But I definitely think there is some merit in neutralising the time. And look, the fear of the organisers is that they'll get to that 8K or 10K, then all the GC guys will sit up, and then it makes a bit of a mockery of the stage because you've only got 50 guys contesting this finish. Well, that's easily solved, isn't it? You don't show those guys sitting up on television.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, people, if you're on a sprint stage, all the cameras should be interested in is what's happening in the sprint. They don't need to focus on the blokes getting dropped and sitting up. So there definitely is some merit in neutralising those stages a bit earlier.
And I suppose neutralising is not the right word, because we're not actually neutralising it. It's what currently happens at 3K to go. Because if a GC rider gets to 3K to go and just sits up and is out and back on his own, he will get docked time because he hasn't been in a fall or anything. He would lose the time. So you can't just sit up at 3K to go, even now. So if you made that 8K to go...
No, I agree. But they could change the rules that they could stop the time at 8K to go, and then if everyone is, or whatever it is, 10K to go, it would just mean that everyone would race flat out till 10K to go, but then the Jesse guys would get out of there. And I think that there's been some talk over the last couple of years about doing something like that, changing the rule. And rules can be changed. Just because they were like that 30 years ago doesn't mean that they can't be changed to adapt to the new style of cycling that we've got to deal with now. So no, there's definitely some merit in looking at some rule changes.
Are you feeling like the general vibe though? Like you look at social media, there is a lot of the riders, and obviously if teams are affected by those crashes, they're going to be pretty passionate about, it's the fault of the course or whatever. What's the general vibe you get from the feeling of yesterday?
Well, I suppose the vibe in the team is depending on what's happening to the team. Like the people obviously who are kicking up a stink are the people who've lost out, aren't they? Mark Matteo made an impassioned plea that the sport needs to change. Well, he only made it because Demar was affected. I'm sure if Demar won the stage yesterday, he would have stayed quiet, wouldn't he? At the end of the day, it's our guys are pretty relaxed about it. They understand it's racing. We got through yesterday unscathed, and we've got to try to do the same today. It's as simple as that. And but any protests by the riders, a bit of talk. There could be a protest this morning, but protests do nothing unless there's a solution. And at the moment, the UCI haven't got a solution. The organisers, they're not really fussed. I think they're probably licking their lips. It adds to the spectacle of their race. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a positive for cycling, seeing all these guys crashing out so early. Because at the end of the day, these teams are investing a lot of money and a lot of effort in these athletes, and for having a lot of favourites crash out of the first week of the Tour de France isn't good for the race in the long term either. And it certainly isn't good for sponsors who are investing a lot of time and money to see their athletes at their prime in the biggest race of the year.
So on a plus for you, even though Michael did get caught up a little bit in it yesterday and didn't get in the points in the finale, he's actually equal third on points, and the guys in front of him aren't going to be in the race for the green jersey going forward. And he's got a good, I think 25 points or something lead on Sagan, who unfortunately fell off. But he's actually looking fairly strong for a tilt at the green jersey over the next week.
Yeah, I think having Caleb out of the race, who's probably the fastest guy here, does change the dynamic of the green jersey competition. And for us to have any chance of taking that jersey, Bling has to score points on days like today, and that'll be his weakness. Will be the normal flat sort of sprint stages. So if we come out of the next couple of days with in a good place, then it's a possibility. At the end of the day, we're just sort of following the wheels there in the immediate sprints, and today's a slight uphill finish, but it does certainly change the dynamic, because at the end of the day, who the sprinters who are here with Cavendish, you wouldn't see him as a threat for the green jersey. Tim Merlier's already ruled it out. Tim Merlier, people may forget, Tim Merlier, who won yesterday, he did the Giro and Tour of Belgium in the last bit. So he's had a pretty busy program, and I dare say his program is to come and try to win a stage in the first week and then see what happens. So it might be a struggle for him to get all the way to Paris as well. But it's a pretty open book as far as the sprinters go now with Caleb out of the race.
That was the first part of the chat with Matt White. He's part number 2. And how does the effect of the overall contenders? Obviously Geraint Thomas, got held up, and is he starting today, Iffy?
Well, as far as we know, he had a separated shoulder, which is fairly impressive. It happened very early in the stage. So he's ridden about 150 kilometres with a separated shoulder, and only lost a little bit of time in the end, coming with Pogacar, I think 26 seconds down. So, I think he'll be starting. At the moment, Carapaz is their only man, is the Grenadiers, the Ineos Grenadiers man who hasn't lost any time. But he'd probably lose all of his gain on his teammate in the time trial tomorrow.
Well, my point is, and Roglic, and Esteban is obviously up there in the pointy end, and he's going to lose time at the time trial. But you'd think, if he could sort of maintain a consistent level, top 10, top 5, for him and Lucas. I mean, does it change the plan, or is it still going to be, fall back and go for stages?
Oh, we'll play it by ear, mate. The stages are the target, but those guys, especially Lucas, he's here to ride general classification for sure. And as far as G, so he dislocated his shoulder, but that photo that you put up before, that was the doctor about a microsecond before he popped it back in for him. So he dislocated his shoulder. The doctor put it back in, and then G got to the finish. But the problem is, the good thing for G is that it wasn't out for very long. And the bad news is that he's got about 2,500 kilometres to go of the race. So it's not going to be comfortable for him, that's for sure. And I suppose riding a time, getting in those positions, he's going to have to get in tomorrow. And just it'll be a lot of pain management. But I don't know if that's going to be the ideal. It's certainly not ideal for G to have done that yesterday. And he admits it was he crashed. His hand slipped on his handlebars over a speed hump and landed on the deck on his own, and 1 metre after the speed hump, and then took a couple of blokes down with him. But yeah, accidents happen, even going in a straight line, and there was no fault of anyone's but G. He put his hand up for that one. But it's certainly, there's a lot of guys who are off GC very, very early on, which be interesting, because if you look at if everything goes to plan today and it's a bunch sprint, you'd probably expect Pogacar to be in the jersey as early as tomorrow. So that'll be interesting just for UAE. Last year, obviously, UAE played a lot off the back of Jumbo, but for them to be in the yellow jersey so early will be very interesting to see how they handle that.
It's funny you say about G, because that's Groundhog Day. I can remember him doing almost exactly the same thing, hitting a bump and hands slipping off the handlebars last year.
Yeah, at the Giro last year, he hit a water bottle in the neutral.
That's right.
And hitting a full water bottle downhill was like hitting a brick, and that ended his season last year, didn't it? So yeah, he's had a little bit of a bad run, but he's a tough man, and I'm sure he'll be on the start line today. But how that affects his overall performance, we'll find out in the coming days.
Have you ever dislocated? I was just going to say, have you ever dislocated your shoulder, Waddy, back in the day?
I have not. The only bone I've ever broken in my body was when I broke my collarbone there 3 hours or 4 hours before the start of the Tour de France in 2005. That's the only bone I've broken, touch wood. But
I dislocated my shoulder playing footy. It doesn't tickle. It's shocking. And then the joint never quite heals over. Had to prematurely retire from the Murrumbina Lions.
And guys, and I don't know about in G's case, it might not be the first time that he's dislocated that shoulder as well. So the more times you do dislocate it, the looser the joint is. And I know Cam Meyer, for example, he dislocated his shoulder and broke his collarbone that many times. When he was young, he actually had to get surgery special surgery to tighten both of them up. And so, which after that, I don't think he dislocated his shoulder since, but they were so loose at one stage that he was at the beach once and a wave hit him and it dislocated his shoulder.
Bloody wave.
Yeah, but I remember he had to go. They were so loose that he had to go and get, and he did one elbow at a time. So he's out of action from about 3 or 4 weeks with one, and then he flew back up to England and got the other one done. But it worked. But the more times he dislocated, the looser that joint is.
So what's the plan of attack for today's stage, mate?
Copy and paste from yesterday, mate. Just stay out of trouble. Keep Lucas in good position there, and then when we get to the final, Luca and Michael will freestyle a little bit more off the other teams, and it's a better sprint today. My slight uphill kick, and with Caleb out of the picture there, and a couple of the other sprinters will be interesting to see who can try. But a lot of the workload will probably fall on Alpecin today, and if we can jag a result there somewhere and get some more points in the intermediate sprint, and get Lucas safe and sound, it'll be a good day.
Mate, tell me the roads aren't narrow in the final there.
They're not as narrow as yesterday. It's raining outside at the moment, but it is expected. We got a big transfer this morning, got an hour and a half transfer to the start, but it should be a little less stressful in the final today. famous last words, but it can't be any more. It can't be any more stressful than the last couple anyway.
Now, last question for me. Every time at the Giro, I'd ask you, how dinner was and that. I didn't really go there because France traditionally, we're talking offals, we're talking, frogs' legs, all this sort of stuff, and just never delivered compared to the Giro. But how's the first 3 or 4 days been, and have you had to just sort of cherry pick off Nikki's food?
Surprisingly good. We've only had 2 hotels so far. So we had we arrived quite early. We arrived on the Tuesday to the tour. So we had 1 hotel from Tuesday till Sunday, and then we've had another hotel here in Lorient for the last 2 nights, and then we're back on the road again this morning to a new hotel. But surprisingly good, Jonesy. We haven't had we're saving the duck until we get down towards the Pyrenees. But we've had so far the quality of the hotels have been good, which has been coincided with decent food. But no, we always know that there's fresh fruit, fresh salad and veggies just waiting for us with the leftovers from the boys that Nikki's cooked up. So we've always got that plan B.
Oh, as soon as that bell goes off, mate, you've got to be front and center.
What's that, mate?
As soon as they ring that bell, remember there used to be a bell back in the day, so the pigs could run to the top.
You just got to get the heads up from Nikki that you can get in there. But we'll be back in our favourite hotel there in Po there with the gypsies in a couple of days there, where we'll be having duck for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But until then, we'll just be until then. The hotels have been pretty good.
Yeah, good.
You can't go wrong with the seafood in Brittany. I love it. But my last one for you, mate. I was actually impressed with Michael Matthews yesterday. In his positioning, he was making. He was a bit unlucky that a little split cost him a chance. But up until that moment, he was right in the mix of it, and I was pretty impressed.
No, the boys have been riding really well. Luke Durbridge, Chris Jensen, and then obviously in Luca. Mezget's have been riding very good support for Michael and Lucas the last couple of days. So it's I'll be carrying on the same. And our big Norwegian, Amon Janssen, who went down really hard on day 1. He had a better day yesterday, and I would expect that another easy day today, and then an easy time trial, and he'll be back on the front line with us on day 6. So all the teams have had a bit of bad luck here and there, but in general, our guys are in a good place with a hell of a lot of racing still to come.
Well, if the tour's anything to go by, there's going to be some more surprises. So stay safe. Best of luck today, mate. And we'll check in again tomorrow.
All right, gents. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
See you, Matty.
See you, mate.
See you, guys.
Thanks again to Matt White for his contributions on the detour. Have been fantastic insights. Now, we've had a few more comments. The old wheel wizard, Iffy, he loves throwing his hat in the ring. He says, not planning on going to the tour for the next few years. I think you'll get interviews with the quick step riders. Now, I wasn't having a go at the quick step riders. I'm all for the riders. That's why I get fired up when, rider safety is not paramount. It's just Lefebvre. And I'll call a spade a spade. It's called as you see it, Iffy. Peter Varley says, Dan, it might be a little hard, but I feel like most of the falls are riders' mistakes. Now, I can take rider error, not a problem. But in most workplaces, Peter, there's an onus of, is this a safe work environment? Okay, I get that cycling's a sport, there's going to be crashes or whatever. But my whole point was, if there was concerns raised, it's an unnecessary risk that could lead to a crash. And what we saw with guys like Jack Haig, no one wants to see that. And if they've been made aware and you're aware that you can make a change and do something about it, then just do it. Don't think about it, just do it. So that was my point. But I do understand that, there's, and Whitey said it as well, they were aware of the course. They did do the recon. There was a heads up, but the peloton has changed, as we know as well, Iffy. Like, it's not like old school. There ain't the enforcers. It's all changed. And, probably mid-2000s when the GC teams were up at the pointy end, particularly around the sprints, getting in position, it just created this washing machine. They need to skin it back now. Every other sport is trying to take advancements when it comes to athletes' health. We're doing investigations with concussion, with the NFL and all that sort of stuff. Cycling, it's starting to evolve and they're going to make some changes. So Anyway, there's been some comments, Iffy, about the Olympics. So Sally says, with the Olympics so close, it's likely that there are national squads asking their riders to abandon due to the large number of crashes. If so, if they did so, how would team owners, managers likely react? Well, obviously, the teams would have preference, John, but we were talking off air. You know, Jack Haig was scheduled to represent Australia. Now, that's obviously it's not going to happen. What happens there? Who takes his spot?
Well, firstly, I'll just answer Sally from just before. There's no way that the nationals would try to talk riders out of finishing the Tour de France. They haven't got any rights and wouldn't do that. As far as Jack Haig, well, he won't be riding the Olympics, that's for sure. So who's going to take his spot? It probably should be Bling. A lot of people felt he should have been in there anyway. So, but if he's in the mix for the green jersey and he really goes all the way to the line in Paris chasing that, he might be able to. It's only 6 days from Paris to the Olympic road race, so that's going to be the challenge. But he would be the man who I believe should be selected to take Jack's spot.
Alan Rankin asked a good question for you, Iffy. What's driving the lack of respect within the bunch? Is it the demands of sponsors, team managers, DSs, race organisers, or a bunch of young guys who have no fear and win at all costs mentality?
I think it's the last part of your question is the answer. It's exactly right. You used to have to serve an apprenticeship in cycling. You came in as a youngster. You got told what to do, where to go. You didn't really get a chance to ride a Grand Tour for a couple of years, and then you worked your way up and you respected the elders. Suddenly, 21-year-olds start winning the Tour de France, and they haven't got any respect for it. I don't have a problem with it. That's the way it is. I didn't like the old system with, some of the Bernino and then later on Cipollini, ruling the roost. Nowadays, Chippo would just get told to go sit down the back of the bunch, old man, because they don't mess around anymore. Look, but it is the issue. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Dan, but it is a bike race. And you're right, when you start putting on real narrow roads with lots of bends, there's going to be some way around this. And I really think that it will be what exactly what was it? What he was saying? Move it might change. It might be 3K to go, sometimes 5K to go. It might be a spot where you realise from here on it's very dangerous. We're doing the timing from that spot. It doesn't have to be the one distance all the time, but to remove the GC trains from the sprint train would make a huge difference.
Yeah, just get them out there. That's it. They don't need to be in there. We don't want to see it. We don't want to see crashes like that. But, and more people are saying, it's the onus is back on the riders. I get both sides. Scotty Davies says if riders are crossing wheels, then they need to get better riding skills. Don't have issues with, you don't want to see the crashes with Caleb and that. I get that.
Caleb's got good skills. But if you really look at that, and if you watched Robbie dissected it very well on a special on SBS just before. But I'd noticed that at the time. So when Caleb did a really good job to dive underneath the guard and get to the right spot, they were all to the right. And he went to go left, but at the same time as he went to go, Tim Millier moved that little bit and he just crossed over the wheel. He meant to go through a little, he thought the gap would be there, Millier moved, and over the wheel he went. You don't get any better handling your bike in a sprint finish than Caleb Ewan. Robbie McEwen is exactly the same. They were both as good as you get. But hey, even the best make a slight mistake. Yeah. But you shouldn't have a bend 150 metres from the line either. If I delivered, when I was setting up the courses for the Herald Sun Tour, if I delivered that course of yesterday's stage in Herald Sun Tour, the top teams would never come back. They just would not come back. They have to come back to the Tour de France. So that's the challenge.
Interesting. Who's your predictions for stage 4, Johnny?
Cav.
Who's gonna win? Cav.
Cav. Yep.
The Manx missile. It's going to break through.
Look, we got Tim Millier. He'll be in with a chance, and maybe they'll turn it around. Jasper Philipson, and I love the fact that Matthew Van der Poel led them out in the yellow jersey. It reminded me back when the Aussies were doing that, when Brad McGee did it for
Cookie.
For Cookie, and Cookie won the stage. Took me back to that. Nasser Bahani, hey. He didn't hit anyone. Matter of fact, he did a very, very good job.
He's been well behaved. He's been really well behaved.
Give him time. He'll be back with Biffo, I'm sure. Sonny Cobrelli, he's right in the mix. Peter Sagan, hopefully, he'll probably be too sore tomorrow. But Bling will be in there. Keith Bowl, the Dutchie, Damar, I think he's okay, so he'll be in the mix. But I'm going with Cav.
All right. Yeah, I'm on the Cav train. Bugger it. Let's go. We're going to defect over to Phil. We're on Team UK. Now, Scotty McGrory says the Tokyo course has too many long climbs for Bling. Lucas Hamilton might be an appropriate option. And then David's chimed in and said right off between Hamilton and O'Connor, highest on GC gets a start. Why not? Why not?
Yep.
And Scott Davies says Wiggins gave Cav a lead out in the yellow jersey on the last stage. That would have been 2012.
Yeah,
correct.
That he did.
Yep. All right, mate. Well, geez, we normally try and get a show around 35 to 40 minutes. We're over an hour. Anything you want to add before we wrap things up?
No. Looking forward to another great day. Let's just hope they all stay upright.
Yeah. Thanks again for all your support, guys. Remember to get on youtube.com/The Detour Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Keep telling your mates. But also, as we said at the top of the show, we're going to keep pushing this. The Careca Foundation. Get on board and make a donation, because the best thing about Phil is, he is the voice of cycling. He doesn't have to come on the Detour, but he's such a passionate guy about people, but he's passionate about the cause, and he's obviously, really passionate about making a difference with the rhinos over there in South Africa. So if you can donate, and thanks again to Let's Go, Mitchelton Wines, and Bike Exchange for getting behind, giving some incentives for people to donate. So appreciate it. And thanks again for all your support, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow. And as you said, iffy, hopefully everyone can stay safe. I won't go on a rant tomorrow. I'll put the one wood back in the bag. And who knows? We could get one prediction right for the Tour de France this year, and the Manx missile might salute. What a story. See you tomorrow.